Let's go back to 2002 for a minute.
Okay.
That was the election year when Speaker Tom Murphy, who had been Speaker for some almost 30 years, was defeated.
Longest serving Speaker in the nation.
Was defeated. Were you surprised by that?
Yes. Yes, I was very surprised when Speaker Murphy was defeated. The man had done such an incredible amount for the state of Georgia. Certainly for his district. His district, probably when he was elected, probably was one of the least served. Maybe that's not a good word. Didn't have very much going for it. And when he came in, he brought that district to one of the most outstanding districts in the state. They had colleges, they had great roads, they had interstate. That district had everything going for it, and I believed that the people in that district would have known what they had and what the leadership was that they had and what he had done and could do for them. And I just never thought that they would have beat him. He ruled with a strong hand, as you well know. He was my dear, dear, dear friend. I was one of the rare birds that could go from the Senate to the House and still have good friends over there. There's generally been a battle, but the Speaker was my very dear friend. And he did rule with a strong, strong hand, and I know in doing so he offended a lot of people. And again, that accounts somewhat to the Republican movement that was coming into the state of Georgia. You know, it had already begun north and it was working its way south, and that happened. I saw the Speaker several times after that, and don't think I have ever seen anybody any more hurt. Heartbroken's probably not the right word, but hurt that his people didn't recognize all the things that he did and how much he cared for them. I think it broke his heart.
Democrats in the House were able to hold on for another 2 years. In 2004, the Republicans swept the state,
Right.
became the majority, and things in the Capitol changed.
Right. They changed tremendously. You hear the old saying, it's the same song, just a different verse. And I guess that's true. I guess that's true to a large degree. You know, when the Democrats were in charge, they got ethics was, oh, so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that, and the Republican Party was trying to point out all the shortcomings of any Democrat that did anything that was considered to be unethical, and they painted themselves to be above reproach. I think once they took over, we all see that they're human too, or we're human. Mm-hmm. They make mistakes. They make poor judgments. They make bad ethical calls. Yeah, I think history's a wonderful thing. If we go back as far as we can and we watch those circles, they just kind of tend to evolve, don't they?
They do. Let's talk for a minute about your part of the Democratic Party. Some say it's become too liberal, too urban, and too dependent on minorities and labor unions. Is that a fair criticism?
I think it's a fair criticism. I wouldn't say that it's to any of those things. I think it's a fair criticism that it's leaning in that direction. And that would be not the entire party. I think that you've got what I refer to myself as serving in the sensible center. You've got moderates that call themselves Democrats, and you've got moderates that call themselves Republicans. You've got the extreme right, who I certainly don't agree with, and you've got the extreme left that I don't agree with. I think that sensible center is what it takes to run a state, to run a nation, to move us forward. I'm currently serving as a county manager up in White County, where everybody in that county is elected as Republicans. We all have the same vision. We all have the same wishes for our county. We're all very interested in the economic crisis that we're going through. I think when you have that sensible center, you can move a county forward, you can move a state forward. If you get too far off in either direction, I think you take the state in the wrong direction.
Do you think that a third party could be made of your sensible center?
Sensible center. Could it be? Certainly. Can it be? Will it be? Not anytime in the near future, I don't think. You know, we're seeing a lot of movement and hearing a lot about the group that calls themselves the Tea Party. It's composed largely, I think, of Republicans, but you're also seeing a lot of moderate Democrats that are moving into that group. We have a person in White County this year running for the commission seat, who served as a commissioner for 4 years, has been out for 4 years, and he served as a Republican, ran and served as a Republican. He's coming back running as an independent. Independents have tried to make inroads over the years. I almost think you've got to be an organized group. In my lifetime, Bob, I think that we're seeing more organization out of the Tea Party as far as a political body than we've ever seen as an organized group before. To say that they will ever become a force, you know, we go back in history, we had the Whigs and the this and the that, all the parties. It's just that we haven't known anything, you and I, in our lifetime, which has been a pretty good while. We haven't seen anything except Democrats and Republicans, and so the nation was formed with lots of different parties through the years, and the Tea Party may make it. It may be an organized group that they've got some strong leaders, they've got some very recognizable names. They may be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, in Georgia, it's very difficult to get on the ballot as an independent.
Yes, very difficult.
Purposely.
Yes, by design.
Right.
By design, no doubt. You have to get a huge amount of signatures, a percentage of the signatures of the voters that elect you. Now, we had one or two people in the House that served as an independent for a little while. I think they're out now. I don't think we have any independents in either the House or the Senate. There may be some running this year. I'm not aware of it, if there are. But by design, yes, the law was passed several years ago when it was all under Democrat control to stop an independent or to slow them down, or if you're going to run as an independent, you got to really have your heart in it, because you sure have to work for it.
A lot of hoops.
Yeah, lots and lots of hoops.
Yeah. Do you think the Democratic Party can regain its majority in Georgia?
Can they regain? You know, that's such a broad question. There's we have some fantastic leaders that are Democrats. We have some fantastic leaders that are Republicans. If you put the right person as a candidate, I think that you can. I do believe that the majority of the people in this state are much more interested in the person than they are in the party. You've got, I think I've heard the numbers, you've got 20% that would die before they'd vote anything besides Republican. You've got 20% that would die before they'd vote anything but Democrat. But you've got this group in the middle, I think, that still may call themselves Republican or they may call themselves Democrat. But I think at the end of the day, they're much more interested in the best person for the job, whether it be Democrat or Republican.
Moving ahead now to 2006 governor's race. You got two popular Democrats, Mark Taylor and Kathy Cox, opposing each other for the right to run against the incumbent, which was Governor Perdue.
Right.
That was a very bitter race. Did that hurt the party?
I think so, probably. Everything that I've heard has said that it did. There was the bitter race. You know, we were so almost even as far as Democrats and Republicans at that point in time. Those two people were the two strongest Democrats in the state of Georgia at that time. Two outstanding people. One had served in the House, one had served in the Senate, one had been the Secretary of State, one had been the Lieutenant Governor, had both done outstanding jobs. Then they came against one another, both as Democrats, and it was a bloody, bitter fight. I think that it did. I think that even though Governor Taylor won the primary, I don't think that the people that were supporting Secretary Cox ever warmed up to him because it had been so bitter. I don't think he was able to gather them into his race. It seemed that it was awfully difficult for him at that point in time to get the steam back in his engine of his campaign. Mm-hmm. And I do think that had for that particular election anyway, I think it had an adverse effect on the Democratic Party, yes.
Mm-hmm. Does it continue today?
The battle between the two of them, or the hurt feelings or what have you, does it continue today?
Well, the split in the party.
As far as the Taylor-Cox?
Yeah.
Not so much. I don't hear it so much. I don't think so. I think people from both sides of there may have left the party. Mm-hmm. The people that had been really leaders in the party, I think they may have left, not necessarily to switch, but just became discouraged. Mm-hmm. They became discouraged with the process. They became discouraged because their candidates didn't win, and they just said, I'm just tired. I heard a lot of people say that. I'm just tired. I'm just going to step out of politics for a while. You saw an awful lot of that in donors, in financial donors. Mm-hmm. People, it takes so much money to run a campaign, and people had put an awful lot of money into these campaigns, and I think they were very discouraged about it, and it's made it difficult for people to raise money, because the ones that had given tremendous amounts of money said, I'm just not going to put any more money in a campaign because my mm-hmm. candidate didn't do. So I think I think that feeling is just beginning to maybe soften a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You thought about running for Secretary of State?
I did. I thought about running for Secretary of State. I, as we say, tested the water. Even though Georgia's not that type state, we still talk about doing that. It was a great opportunity for me. Again, I went back to my base, being the clerks of court, the constitutional officers, and the people I had served with in the legislature. I went back to that base, had a very warm reception from all of them. I was running a business at the time. My husband passed away right after I was elected to the Senate. I was continuing to run that business by myself. I came to realize that I could not do both. I could not conduct a statewide campaign and continue to run that. Had some health problems, came on the scene at that time. I had a lot of encouragement to move into the 50th district, which I'd been gerrymandered out of, to move into the 50th district to run for that Senate seat again. Consulted with a lot of people, a lot of prayerful thinking, a lot of consultation with people that I knew and trusted, and in doing so, I made the decision to not run for Secretary of State, but instead to run for the Senate seat. So I had real estate over in the 50th district. So I moved prior to qualifying time to the 50th district to run for that seat. Qualified 1 week after qualifying closed. My opponent's, I think he was her campaign manager, filed a suit against me questioning my residence. We had to go to court, had a very expensive litigation. Of course, obviously I did live in the district and had lived in the district, but we had to prove that in court. Went through that hurdle. A lot of things happened. The economy was going bad. I sold my business. In early September, if I can talk on a personal note here for a minute, in early September I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Had to have surgery. Now we're talking September, October, November, 2 months before the election. I had to have surgery, had to start radiation, which was somewhat debilitating. The treatments, the energy level, everything. I was not able to conduct the type campaign that I always had. Since 1980, I was a hands-on, out with the people candidate. Because of my sickness and my energy level, I was not able to do that. The end of September, I was diagnosed with Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Ooh. Spent 2 weeks in the hospital, came out with that. So that, I was not able to conduct the type campaign that I always had. However, I did enough, apparently. We did a poll early on, and that poll showed me ahead of then serving Senator Nancy Schaefer. We did an exit poll on Thursday before the election the following Tuesday. That exit poll showed me up by 7 percentage points. Was 7 percentage points even up, even with the 5% disparity that they talk about in polls? I should have still won by 2 percentage points. Of course, I kept going as hard as I could. Had I not been the victim of this strategy, I would have been so impressed. This was a brilliant move, and it took lots of guts to do what my opponent or her leaders or whoever conducted the campaign or the party. On Friday, this was on Thursday, on Friday evening they started running I don't know who it was. It was not my campaign. It was not my party. It was not any of my people that ran this campaign. I mean, these ads. I do not know who it was. It had some name that nobody recognized and that we could not trace back. But they started running these very, very nasty ads against Ms. Schaefer. Very bad against her. And of course, we're scrambling trying to figure out where it's coming from and to stop it because, you know, I'm 7 points up. I don't have to do this. So we couldn't find it out. There was no time. Then on Sunday afternoon, there was a TV preacher who later passed away. I'm sorry, I forgot his name, maybe Jimmy Sway. I don't know which one it was, but there was a television preacher that everybody knew, had great name recognition, did robocalls on behalf of Nancy Schaefer against me. Then on Monday morning, Ms. Schaefer goes on TV, on radio, on everything, saying what a horrible person I am and what a bad thing I've done to her, and that everybody knew how good she was. And with that strategy, they defeated me, less than 1 percentage point, but they defeated me from Thursday night till Tuesday afternoon at 7 o'clock by using that strategy. It was brilliant. It was brilliant. Really was. But anyway, everything works out for the good. She served her term, and then, of course, you know, she was a lot of tragedy, and for which I sincerely say I am so sorry. It was a bad, bad thing. But Jim Butterworth has done a good job for 2 years. At the end of that time, I moved back to White County and continued with doing what I was doing, which was a consultant for a group of engineers, and then I was offered the job as county manager in White County, and that's what I'm doing today. Still involved in politics, gone full circle, back in the courthouse.
But you work with a county commission that's almost totally Republican.
It is totally Republican.
It is.
Totally Republican.
And no
Yes.
confrontation there.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Political party in my job it's non-existent. Absolutely non-existent. I love White County. Always have, always will. My interest is what's best for the people in White County. We've had to make some very tough decisions this year financially, but we've made those decisions, and we've made them not on the backs of the taxpayers. We've cut just like everybody has. So my work in the judiciary system as clerk of court, in the state senate as a senator, in the private sector as a business owner for 30 years, certainly has prepared me for the job that I'm doing. My commissioners are the 3 of the greatest folks you've ever known, lifelong friends. We all have the same thought in mind. We're going from a 3-member commission to a 5-member this year, so that's going to be a change. But politics has been so good to me over the years, and I love it. Can't sit down with anybody that's ever been interested in politics without that's where our conversation must go to politics.
Well,
just like you and I driving here today. That's all we talked about.
You're still young and energetic. Is there an elective office in the future?
Oh, never say never. Never say never. I don't have my eye on anything right now, but I stay open to anything.
Let's go back for a minute, if you will, to corrections.
Okay.
Georgia has one of the largest correctional prisoners in the country. Are
Right.
we going about all that right?
You know, there's an awful lot of debate about what's right and what's wrong. If I can regress to my dear friend Zell Miller, when he was governor of the state, he promoted and passed some very, very, very tough criminal laws that needed to be passed. No criticism on that. What we've run into, though, is the 2 strikes and out, and some of the judges have much discretion in sentencing, as we all know. They're elected. I'm not criticizing judges, please understand that. They're elected to office just like we all are. While they follow the law, if they err to either side, it would be to lock them up and throw away the key, as opposed to alternative systems to treat. I don't remember the percentage, but a huge percentage of the population in our prison system today is drug and alcohol related, whether it be drug possession, taking drugs, manufacturing, whatever type you're doing with drugs, or whether it be alcohol or drugs involved where someone's been killed, or where it's been family abuse where you get crazy on drugs and alcohol. 90%, well, that's probably an overstatement, but such a large percentage of the people in our system today are there because of that, because of drugs and alcohol. I don't think addictions can be, I don't think you can put an addict in prison and lock them up for 20 years or 10 years or 5 or whatever, how many years you want to keep them there, and turn them out on the street and then be cured of that addiction. I think it's going to take more than that. I think there are some alternatives that are being introduced. I think that the Corrections Department is being very wise in studying these, not rushing out to do the first thing that's there to treat or to rehabilitate or to alleviate the problem. I think they're being very wise in looking at all the different ways that this can be handled. And I think that's something we're going to have to come forward to. And politically, let me just tell you, politically, you're not going to see many House members or senators that are going to introduce a bill that's going to weaken any criminal law politically. Because for sure somebody's going to come back and run against them, and every time they raise their head, they're going to get beat over the head with that bill. Because they're going to say, oh, he or she wants to weaken the laws. They are in favor of drugs, or they're in favor of alcohol, or they're supporting people that murder. You know, you're just not going to see people introduce bills, legislators introduce bills that will weaken laws.
Despite the fact that these alternatives would be less expensive to the taxpayers than our current system of incarceration.
There may come a time in the state of Georgia when there will have to be some executive decisions made, not against the law certainly, but some executive decisions made that can be made that will change this practice. Whether it be through, if you get sentenced to the alternative sentencing method, if someone's sentenced to 20 years for drug trafficking, then I think that you're going to see probation and parole and the executive branch use some of their discretion in saying, we're going to treat them with this method while they'll still be under supervision. We don't have the money to build the prisons. We do not have the money to build the prisons that it would take to incarcerate all the people that need to be incarcerated according to some of the laws that we have on the books today. It's just not there. And whenever the economy gets as tough as it is, I've always heard that people start thinking much more about their own pocketbook than they do about what their neighbor's doing. Mm-hmm. So now I think people are worried about feeding their family and about paying their taxes and this sort of thing, much more than they're worried about what the Department of Corrections is doing. Mm-hmm. That's everything I've read and seen leads me to that opinion.
I know that you worked pretty hard on the state's indigent defense law. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Indigent defense, you know, the law clearly states, both federal and state, that everybody has the right to representation when they're charged with a crime. Criminal, of course, only, certainly not civil. Before we had the indigent defense statewide, each county had to foot that bill themselves. And the judges had White County, I'll use that for an example since that's where I was clerk of court. The judges would take a list of all the lawyers in that county, and they would go down, they would rotate those lawyers, and they would appoint whether it be Larry Fowler to this case and Stan Lawson to this case and Grant King to this one, on down as they had lawyers. We didn't have that many lawyers in White County, and these attorneys made basically nothing because the law said you only have to pay them X amount of dollars to represent an indigent. Well, the lawyers were certainly raised in saying they did not want to be appointed on these cases because they couldn't make any money. So, and I recognize that, but I also recognize the fact that people that were accused of a crime, some of them were guilty, some of them were not. But they still, according to the laws of this nation and of this state, have the right to representation. I saw the great need for indigent defense, for a state-funded program that could do this. But you got to also remember that was in the year that we had the coffers under Democratic control. The coffers in the state of Georgia were full and overflowing. We had the money to do that. I still believe in our Constitution, our state Constitution, our federal Constitution. I believe in that. I believe that everybody has the right to representation. I believe in my state. I believe in my nation. And as a result of that, that's why I was very supportive of indigent defense, and still am.
Mm-hmm. Has it worked to your satisfaction?
Has it worked to my satisfaction? Yeah, I think so for the most part. Speaking for the 50th District, I think that we have good attorneys. I think that everybody that has wanted an attorney that could not afford one, and that's very key, because you have a lot of people that have money that think they can have a court-appointed lawyer, as they call it, or an indigent defense attorney to represent them. But our judges, I know that our judges in the Onoda District and in the Northeastern District, where I'm most familiar, the Mountain District, are very, very, very careful. They quiz people thoroughly to determine their indigence before they tell them they can have a court-appointed lawyer. But we've got good lawyers in those offices. Some of them are very young, but you know, they know the law, and they work hard for those people that they represent.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you look back over your career, is there anything you'd have done differently?
Gosh, my political career, what would I have done differently? No, it's been a great ride. It's been a great ride. Still is. Still is a great ride. I love it. You know, I could probably pinpoint several things, but if I take my careers as a whole, whether it be from the business standpoint, from the political standpoint, from the private sector, the public sector, I would have probably done a few things differently. But it's been good, and you know, my faith is so strong that I certainly believe that everything that's happened to me in my life has happened for a reason, and it's taken me to a better place. So that's how I feel where I am now, and that's why I never say never, because I don't know where it's going to take me next.
Mm-hmm. What do you consider your greatest accomplishment?
What do I consider my greatest accomplishment? I think one of the things that, and this is not one certain thing, Bob, that I could point to, but what I'm most proud of is being able to help people that cannot help themselves. And I don't mean that just financially. That's not where I'm going. You've got plenty of very educated people that don't know about, for instance, the judicial system, or they don't know about legislation, or they don't know how to get in to have a conversation with their senator or their representative or their lieutenant governor or their governor. That's been a great help. A lot of people are extremely intelligent, but they're not educated. I take great pride in having been able to help many of those people. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are indigent, who can't help themselves, I've been able to point them in directions that they needed to go. I think being able to help people and to represent the people that have elected me, whether it be as the clerk of court or as the state senate or now in my position as the county manager, I think being able to help people has been my greatest reward.
Any disappointment?
Sure, there have been lots of disappointments. I was tremendously disappointed when I lost my race for the Senate. That was a tremendous disappointment, absolutely. I was disappointed to see some of the people that I worked very hard for, to see them lose elections. That's been the election disappointments, I guess, have been my greatest disappointments. Certain people that I believed in and that I trusted and that I had faith in have disappointed me, as they have everyone over the years. And I can point mainly toward politics for that. I guess that's been my greatest disappointments. Struggles, tons of them. Greatest education come from my PhD in the College of Hard Knocks, you know.
Yeah.
But
I
life's
know
been
that
good.
you're singled out by young people, and rightly so, who are seeking public office. What advice do you give them?
From the time that you're old enough to be involved, get involved. Get involved in your chosen career, whether it be politics. You know, I look at the number of people that we have, bright people that we have today, that are just kind of drifting along and not doing much of anything. And I want to just say, don't do this. Don't you know what a wonderful brain, what a wonderful opportunity you have? Don't you know what good things you could do to lead our county or our state or our nation? And my greatest advice is, you know, in high school, I was always involved, president of this, you know, class this, always involved in whatever was going on. My children came along. Soon, when they got in school, I was president of PTA, very active in Chamber of Commerce, anything going on in the community, always active in my church, first of all, next to my family or with my family, teaching Sunday school, being involved with Bible school, that sort of thing. Just be involved. Just take a role. You know, everybody can't be leaders. There have to be followers, but be a good follower. Be good at whatever you are. You know, I've had some menial jobs in my life. I worked one of my first jobs was working at the Dairy Queen, but I was so proud of that job, and I probably did the best curl on top of that ice cream cone of anybody in White County. I took great pride in whatever I've ever done as a job. Take pride in what you do and be involved in what's going on in your community.
Senator Carol Jackson, I want to thank you on behalf of the Russell Library at the University of Georgia and Young Harris College for being our guest.
Thank you so much. Senator, I can't think of a place that I'd rather be than sitting in a building named for Senator Russell. What a wonderful, wonderful Richard B. Russell. Thank you very much. And Young Harris College, I sit in the shadow of Young Harris College, and I love it greatly. You have honored me so very, very much for letting me be part of this. And I just want to send a message to women in politics. There's not a glass ceiling up there anymore. My head is broken through it long ago. So just get involved.